My name is Nora Hayes, and at 34, I've built a life I'm proud of. I'm a senior software engineer in Seattle, Washington, working at a tech company most people would recognize, earning more than I ever imagined possible. It's a far cry from my childhood when my world fell apart at 8. My mom walked out on my dad and me after their divorce, leaving us to scrape by in a cramped apartment in Pittsburgh. I worked hard, fought for every opportunity, and thought I'd left that pain behind. But then one rainy October evening, everything changed. A knock at my apartment door brought my past crashing back. My mom had somehow found out how much I earn, and she showed up with my spoiled half-sister demanding I hand over a fortune. Their words hit like a punch, bold, shameless, and dripping with entitlement. It wasn't just about money. It was a betrayal that cut deep. How far would they go to get what they wanted? And what secrets were they hiding? I was about to find out, and it would test everything I thought I knew about family. If you've ever faced a family betrayal, drop a comment below and share your story. It means a lot to hear from you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more real-life drama. I never thought my mom would find me because of the money I make. Growing up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, my life changed forever at 8 years old. My mom, Sandra Hayes, walked out on my dad, Michael Hayes, and me after their marriage fell apart. She'd grown cold, always complaining, until one evening she grabbed 2 suitcases and left while I was at a friend's house. Dad later told me she'd been seeing someone else for months, a guy who managed a car dealership and promised her a better life. The divorce was brutal, leaving us with almost nothing. Mom didn't just leave. She disappeared, moving 3 states away to North Carolina. Years later, I learned she had my half-sister, Brittany Coleman, with her new husband. She never called, never visited, only sent a birthday card once a year with a generic message that felt colder than nothing at all. Those cards would show up in our mailbox, and I'd stare at her handwriting wondering why I wasn't worth more than 20 words a year. Dad poured everything into keeping us alive. He worked as a maintenance supervisor at an old apartment complex, fixing toilets, painting walls, replacing broken heaters in the dead of winter. He'd come home with paint splattered on his jeans, his shoulders sagging from 10-hour days. The job paid maybe $35,000 a year, barely enough to cover rent and groceries. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. The walls were thin, the heat barely worked, and the fridge was always half empty. Dad hid his stress, but I saw it in the way he'd sit at our tiny kitchen table late at night, sorting through bills with a calculator, his jaw tight. He'd still ask about my day, though, his voice warm even when he was exhausted. He'd help me with homework at that same table, hunched over my math worksheets when he should have been sleeping. At 12, I couldn't stand watching him struggle alone. I started babysitting for neighbors, staying up late watching their kids while studying by the glow of a desk lamp I'd gotten from a thrift store. Soon I took on more, stocking shelves at a corner grocery store after school, cleaning offices on weekends. Every dollar I made, I gave to Dad for rent or groceries, or the electric bill that was always threatening to get shut off. He'd argue with me, saying I should be a kid, that this wasn't my burden. But I insisted. It was my way of fighting back against what Mom had done to us, against the hole she'd left. I'd hide my own exhaustion, telling Dad I was fine even when my hands ached from scrubbing floors or my legs burned from standing on my feet for hours. School was my escape. I'd stay late for computer club, teaching myself to code on outdated machines. Dad would sit with me at our worn kitchen table, helping me when he could, even though he barely understood what I was doing. He'd say I was smart, that I could do anything, that I was stronger than what we were going through. His words kept me going even when I felt like giving up. But Mom's absence was a constant wound. I'd look at her picture from before the divorce, wondering what I'd done wrong, why I wasn't enough to make her stay. Those questions carved something dark inside me that I buried under work and studying. By high school, I'd learned to depend only on myself. I saved every penny, studied until my eyes blurred, and made a promise that I'd never need anyone the way I'd needed her. Dad was my rock, but I knew he couldn't carry us forever. I had to build my own way out, and I did, one exhausting step at a time. Still, the weight of those early years never fully left me. I learned to stand on my own early, but the past never really disappeared. By high school, I knew education was my ticket out. I threw myself into my studies, staying up until 2 a.m. to master calculus and physics. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Patterson, saw my drive and helped me apply for scholarships. At 17, I won a full ride to Penn State for computer science, a field that made sense to my brain. That scholarship felt like a miracle, a chance to rewrite everything. But even with tuition covered, I was on my own for everything else. Books, rent, food. There was no safety net. Just me and my determination. To survive, I worked 3 jobs. I waited tables at a diner near campus, juggling plates and memorizing orders while running code syntax in my head. Weekends, I was a receptionist at a dental office, answering phones and filing paperwork. Late nights, I cleaned office buildings, mopping floors until my back screamed. My schedule was brutal, up at 5 a.m., asleep past midnight, always calculating how many hours I needed to work to cover next month's expenses. Every dollar went to rent and ramen, with a little tucked away for emergencies that always seemed to come up. I pushed through the exhaustion, fueled by the promise I'd made to myself that my past wouldn't define my future. College was grueling, but it shaped me. I took extra courses, joined coding competitions, and landed a summer internship at a startup in Philadelphia. The work was intense, debugging for 12 hours straight, but it sharpened my skills. By graduation, I had a degree, multiple job offers, and a position waiting for me at a major tech company in Seattle, Washington. Moving there felt like stepping into a different universe. Seattle's tech scene, the rain, the coffee shops on every corner, it gave me a fresh start far from Pittsburgh. I started as a junior engineer, pouring everything into my work. Within 6 years, I'd climbed to a senior role, leading projects and earning a salary that felt unreal compared to my childhood. $140,000 a year, plus bonuses. It was more money than Dad had made in 4 years combined. With my success, I never forgot Dad. He'd sacrificed everything, working those brutal maintenance jobs to keep us fed. Once my income stabilized, I started sending him $1,000 a month. At first he protested, said he didn't want my money, but I wouldn't take no for an answer. It was my way of paying him back, of easing the burden he'd carried alone for so long. That money helped him pay off old credit card debt, fix his ancient car, and finally get out of that cramped apartment into a small house with a yard. Every time we talked on the phone, his voice would crack with pride. He'd tell me I was his greatest accomplishment, that everything had been worth it. Those words meant more to me than any promotion or raise ever could. Mom, though, was a ghost. Her yearly birthday card still arrived like clockwork, each one identical. "Happy birthday, Nora. Hope you're well." Her handwriting was neat, impersonal, like she was signing a receipt. No phone calls, no attempts to visit, just those cards that I'd shove in a drawer without reading twice. They stirred up questions I'd tried to bury. Why did she leave? Why wasn't I enough? I'd pushed those thoughts down, focusing on work and Dad's quiet support, but the hurt was always there, simmering under the surface. My life in Seattle was everything I'd built from nothing. I bought a sleek apartment in Capitol Hill with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I filled it with furniture I actually chose, art that meant something, a space that felt like mine. My coworkers respected me, and I'd made friends who felt like the family I'd chosen. I thought I'd closed the door on my past, that I'd proven I didn't need mom or her validation. But some wounds don't heal no matter how successful you become. I thought I'd left the past behind until one October evening. One rainy October evening, a sharp knock on my apartment door pulled me away from my laptop. I was working from home, debugging code with a cup of coffee going cold beside me. I opened the door to find my mom standing there, her smile wide but unfamiliar, with my half-sister Brittany slouched beside her. It had been over 20 years since I'd seen Mom's face in person, and the sight knocked the air out of my lungs. She looked older. Her hair dyed blonde now, lines around her eyes she used to not have. She stepped forward, arms open like we'd just seen each other last week. "Nora, sweetheart, it's been too long," she said, pulling me into a hug I didn't return. My body went stiff. Brittany barely glanced up from her phone, muttering a flat, "Hey," without making eye contact. She was 22, wearing designer sneakers and a jacket that probably cost more than my first month's rent in college. We sat in my living room, the space I'd carefully made my own, but their presence made it feel wrong, invaded. Mom's eyes swept around the room, taking in the furniture, the view of Seattle's skyline through the windows, the tech setup I had for work. She started with small talk, how she'd missed me, how proud she was of what I'd accomplished, but her words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced them on the drive over. Then she got to the point. "I heard you're doing really well," she said, her tone shifting. "Big tech job. Good money." She leaned forward, her smile tightening. "Brittany's starting grad school next year. MBA program. The tuition is $80,000 and we're a little short. We were hoping you could help out. Maybe contribute, I don't know, $4,000 a month until she graduates?" I sat there frozen, her words crashing over me. $80,000, $4,000 a month. The numbers were staggering, but it was the casual way she said it that stung the most, like she was asking me to lend her a cup of sugar. Brittany finally looked up from her phone, smirking. "Nice place," she said, her voice dripping with judgment. "But it's kind of small for someone making bank like you, isn't it?" She stretched out on my couch, propping her expensive sneakers on my coffee table like she owned it. "You should get a bigger place. This is kinda sad." Her arrogance was breathtaking. My stomach twisted with anger and disbelief. This wasn't a reunion. This was a shakedown. I tried to process what they were asking. Mom kept talking, painting herself as struggling, saying she and Brittany were barely getting by even though Brittany's clothes screamed money. Her voice got softer, almost pleading, but her eyes stayed sharp, watching every flicker of my expression. She mentioned my job again, dropping hints that she knew my salary range, like she'd done research. "You've got so much now, Nora," she said. "Family helps family, right? That's what we do." The word family hit me like a slap. Where was she when Dad and I were eating ramen for dinner 5 nights a week? When I was working 3 jobs just to stay in school? Part of me, some stupid, desperate part, wanted to believe this was real, that maybe she'd come back to actually reconnect. I'd spent so many years wondering what it would feel like to have her in my life again. Maybe this was my chance. But doubt gnawed at me. Her sudden appearance, the immediate focus on my money, it felt too calculated, too convenient. Brittany didn't help. She cut into Mom's sob story to complain about how basic her current apartment was, how she needed a car to get to grad school interviews, something nice, not some junker. Her entitlement made my skin crawl. I kept my voice level, asking how they'd found me. Mom waved it off, saying she'd heard things through mutual acquaintances from Pittsburgh. That word gets around. Her vagueness set off alarms in my head. I told them I needed time to think, that $80,000 wasn't something I could just hand over. Mom's smile faltered for just a second, and Brittany scoffed under her breath. muttering something about me being cheap. They left soon after, Mom promising to call, her hug lingering a beat too long. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding, torn between rage and this pathetic flicker of hope I hated myself for feeling. The next morning, I woke up to 3 texts from Mom. I agreed to meet Mom and Brittany at a coffee shop in downtown Seattle, hoping maybe I'd get some real answers. The place was busy, filled with the sound of espresso machines and people typing on laptops. I spotted them at a corner table, Mom with that same practiced smile, Brittany scrolling through her phone like this was an inconvenience. My stomach knotted as I sat down. I wanted clarity, maybe even a genuine conversation, but their faces told me this was still about the money. Mom started soft, reaching across the table for my hand. "Nora, I've missed you so much," she said. I pulled my hand back, keeping my guard up. She launched into a story about why she'd been gone all these years, her voice shaking just enough to sound real. "Your father made it impossible for me to stay in touch," she said, her eyes going wide with fake sadness. "He wouldn't let me call. He kept you from me, Nora. I tried. I really did." Her lies cut deep, twisting everything I knew to be true. Dad had begged her to stay in touch, to visit, to be part of my life. She was the one who'd chosen her new family over us. The betrayal felt fresh, like I was 8 years old again watching her pack those suitcases. I stayed quiet, letting her dig herself deeper. She went on about how hard things had been since the divorce, how she'd been struggling to make ends meet. "Brittany's future is at stake," she said, her tone shifting to urgency. "We need your help to get her through grad school. This MBA could change her life." Before I could respond, Brittany jumped in. "Yeah, and I need a car," she said without looking up. "Something decent, like a BMW or an Audi. Can't show up to networking events in a piece of crap. And my laptop's dying. I need the new MacBook Pro, the expensive one." Her demands were insane. A $40,000 car and a $3,000 laptop on top of 80 grand for tuition. Like I owed her a lifestyle I'd never had myself. I gripped my coffee cup, anger building in my chest. "You're asking for a car and a laptop on top of $80,000? I said, keeping my voice steady but sharp. Brittany rolled her eyes. "You're rich, Nora. What's the big deal?" she snapped, tossing her phone on the table. "Stop being so dramatic." Mom jumped in, her voice pleading now. "We're family, Nora. You've done so well for yourself. Can't you share a little of that success with us?" Her words were a repeat of yesterday, but now they sounded desperate, rehearsed. I could see through the act, the way she leaned on the word family to guilt me into giving. I took a breath, my mind racing. "I worked for everything I have," I said, my voice firm. "Dad and I had nothing after you left. I'm not a bank." Mom's face changed, the warmth draining away. "You're so selfish," she spat. "I gave you life, and this is how you repay me?" Her accusation stung, bringing up old wounds, but I wouldn't let her twist this around. Brittany scoffed. "Figures," she muttered. "Mom said you'd probably be like this. Cold." The argument escalated fast. Mom's voice got louder, blaming me for her absence. "If you'd reached out, maybe things would have been different," she said, her eyes flashing. I shot back. "You left when I was 8. You sent cards, not calls. Don't put this on me." My heart was pounding, years of hurt spilling out into this crowded coffee shop. Brittany jumped in, yelling that I thought I was too good for them, that I owed them for being family. People were staring now, but I didn't care anymore. I stood up, my chair scraping loud against the floor. "I'm done," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "I don't owe you anything." Mom grabbed my wrist, her grip tight. "You'll regret this, Nora," she hissed, her face twisted with frustration. I pulled away and walked out, leaving them sitting there. My chest ached with fury and grief. I'd wanted to believe Mom had changed, but she was exactly the same, using me just like she'd used Dad all those years ago. I went home, but they weren't finished with me yet. That afternoon, my apartment buzzer rang, yanking me out of a restless attempt to focus on work. I opened the door to find Mom and Brittany standing there again, uninvited. Mom's smile was tighter than before, her eyes darting around nervously. Brittany leaned against the doorframe, scrolling her phone, looking bored but expectant. After our blowout at the coffee shop, I hadn't expected them back so soon. "We just want to talk," Mom said, her voice too sweet. I felt a chill run through me. Against my better judgment, I let them in, hoping to avoid another public scene. They sat on my couch, Mom clutching her purse, Brittany sprawling out like she lived here. I stayed near the kitchen, arms crossed, watching them. Mom started with small talk about my job, but her questions were pointed. How much did I make exactly? What were my expenses? How did I manage my savings? Then she pivoted, her tone sharpening. "You're doing so well, Nora," she said. "Why can't you help us? Brittany deserves this opportunity." Brittany nodded, muttering, "Yeah, it's not like you're struggling." Their pushiness felt like a trap, and I kept my answers vague, my unease growing. I stepped away to grab water from the kitchen, leaving them alone for maybe 90 seconds. When I came back, Brittany was at my desk. My laptop was open, the screen glowing. My heart dropped into my stomach. She was clicking through my browser and I could see my banking app pulled up on the screen. "What are you doing?" I snapped, rushing over. Brittany shrugged, completely unfazed. "Just looking," she said, smirking. Mom jumped in, her voice defensive. "We were curious, Nora. You've got so much. Why are you hiding it from family?" Her words confirmed what I'd feared. They were after my accounts, my money, everything I'd worked for. I yanked the laptop away, my hands shaking. "You don't touch my stuff," I said, my voice low but firm. I checked the screen. My financial dashboard was open, login attempts logged. My mind raced. I opened my email on my phone, and my stomach dropped further. There was a forwarded message from Dad's email account, sent to Mom's address. It was an email I'd sent Dad months ago, telling him about my promotion and my new salary. She'd gotten into his email. She'd hacked him. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, not just to me, but to Dad, who'd never done anything but protect me. "You hacked Dad's email," I said, turning to face Mom. Her face went pale, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she lashed out. "Your father's a failure, Nora," she spat, her voice venomous. "Still working that dead-end maintenance job, barely scraping by. I had to know if you'd actually made something of yourself." Her words were poison, attacking the man who'd raised me alone, who'd given everything so I could succeed. Brittany snickered, adding, "Yeah, he's kind of pathetic. You're way better than that." Something inside me snapped. I stepped toward them, my voice steady despite the rage coursing through me. "Get out, or I'm calling the police," I said, holding up my phone. Mom's eyes went wide, her composure cracking. "You'd call the cops on your own mother?" she hissed, standing up. Brittany scoffed, tossing her phone on my couch. "Chill, it's not that serious," she said, but her voice wavered. I didn't back down. "You broke into Dad's email and tried to access my bank accounts. That's serious enough," I said, pulling up my phone's dial pad. Mom grabbed Brittany's arm, pulling her toward the door. "You're making a huge mistake, Nora," she warned, her voice cold. "We're not done here." They stormed out, and I locked the door behind them, my hands still trembling. I sat down at my laptop and checked the logs. Multiple failed login attempts on my bank account. A browser tab opened to my bank's password reset page. My background in tech made me careful. All my accounts had two-factor authentication, strong passwords, security alerts. They hadn't gotten in, but they'd tried. Mom's hack of Dad's email wasn't just a violation. It was proof she'd never cared about me, only about what she could take. The weight of it settled over me, fury mixed with a deep, aching betrayal. I called Dad immediately. Right after they left, I dialed Dad's number, my hands still shaking from the confrontation. When he answered, his voice was warm but tired, and I hated that I was about to add to his stress. I told him everything. About Mom hacking his email, her lies about him keeping her away from me, and their attempt to access my bank accounts. "She's been lying about you, Dad," I said, my voice tight with anger. He sighed, and the sound was so weary. "That's Sandra," he said quietly. "She always twisted things to make herself look better." He confirmed that his email had been compromised. Someone had changed his password a few weeks ago, and he'd thought it was just a glitch. Hearing how she'd violated him again after everything crushed me. But it also made my resolve stronger. I had to protect both of us. I reached out to a lawyer the next day, a family law attorney named Jennifer Park, who'd been recommended by a friend at work. Jennifer was sharp, direct, and didn't waste time. "This is serious, Nora," she said after I showed her everything. Screenshots of the login attempts, the forwarded email from Dad's hacked account, the texts from Mom. We filed for a restraining order at the King County Courthouse, citing unauthorized access to accounts and harassment. The process was exhausting, filling out forms, attending hearings, explaining everything to a judge. But Jennifer walked me through each step. Within 3 weeks, the court granted a restraining order against both Mom and Brittany, barring them from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my home. The judge's ruling felt like I could finally breathe again, like I had legal protection against their schemes. A few days later, I got an alert from my bank. Someone had tried to initiate a wire transfer of $15,000 from my savings account. The two-factor authentication stopped it cold, sending me an alert on my phone. I knew it was Mom, still trying even after the restraining order. My accounts were locked down tight, every security measure I knew how to implement in place. Her failure gave me a grim sense of satisfaction, but it also left me feeling empty. She wasn't just after money, she wanted to tear down everything I'd built. I reported the attempt to Jennifer, who filed it with the court as a violation of the restraining order. The threat of criminal charges finally seemed to make Mom back off. A year later, my life looked different. Word of what Mom had done spread through our extended family back in Pittsburgh. My aunt, Dad's sister Karen, reached out to me. She told me stories I'd never heard about how Mom had borrowed money from family members years ago and never paid it back. How she'd lied and manipulated people even before she left Dad. Aunt Karen's honesty helped me see that Mom's betrayal wasn't about me. It was who she'd always been. Meanwhile, Mom and Brittany's lives unraveled. Family members cut them off, tired of the lies and demands. I heard through Aunt Karen that they'd moved to a smaller town in North Carolina, their social circle gone. It felt like justice, even if it was sad. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Rachel Kim, who a coworker recommended. Dr. Kim was patient, helping me work through the trauma of Mom's abandonment and this recent betrayal. "You've been carrying her choices for too long," she said in one of our sessions, her voice calm but firm. Through months of therapy, I learned to let go of the guilt I'd felt. The belief that maybe if I'd been different, Mom would have stayed. I realized her leaving was her failure, not mine. Those sessions gave me clarity, a way to heal without letting her define who I was. Inspired by my own story, I started a small scholarship fund in Seattle, putting aside part of my income to help kids from low-income families pursue tech careers. The fund offered money for coding boot camps and mentorship, things I wished I'd had growing up. Setting it up felt like honoring the girl I'd been, working 3 jobs just to survive. My friend Alicia, a teacher, helped me organize it. My coworker David built the website, and my neighbor Lisa spread the word through community centers. Their support reminded me I wasn't alone, that I'd built something real here. Through everything, Dad remained my anchor. He visited my apartment in Seattle twice that year, and watching him take in the life I'd built made everything worth it. My friends, Alicia and David and Lisa, became my chosen family, people who showed up without expecting anything in return. They celebrated my wins, sat with me when I struggled, and reminded me what real love looked like. One evening over dinner with them, I realized something important. I had Dad, and I had this chosen family. That was enough. Family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about the people who choose you, who respect you, who stay. To everyone who's made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. I hope it shows you that family is what you build, not what you're born into. Choose people who see your worth, who lift you up instead of tearing you down. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What does family mean to you? Have you ever had to set boundaries with people who were supposed to love you? Please share below and subscribe for more real stories about standing up for yourself and building the life you deserve.